What up, public masses? Welcome to the closet. Sorry for the lack of front lighting. I'm relying on solely my laptop to do this because I have no actual lights because I'm a broke college student. Anyway, let's get into it. Face reveal. This is what I look like. Congratulations. So when you think of Steven Spielberg, at least the average person, the first thing that comes to your mind is usually not like his camera work. It's usually how he tells the story, his writing, how he directs action, his repeated thematic undertones, all the stuff about ordinary people in extraordinary situations. It's a profound sense of wonder that he really focuses on capturing. But a less discussed factor in all of his movies is his camera work. It often blends perfectly into the story without having to go too far and break immersion. Frames constantly evolve and make the camera an active participant in the scene, but at the same time don't require much, if any, fancy editing, making even the most mundane of scenes more ripe with meaning. One of the more important ways that Spielberg keeps his cinematography active is with three-dimensional camera movement. What he essentially discovered is that you don't necessarily need to keep camera movement constrained to one axis per shot, even if it's not a oner. This may seem quite simple, but apparently few people did this back in the day. This ended up being called the L system, which officially just means that the camera doesn't necessarily just have to pan towards or away from the action, but it can also run parallel to it without cutting. He does also like to utilize the Z-axis a lot, which you can too if you have a crane or a drone, but my ass broke, I'm a college student. Of course, everyone's got to spice it up with the occasional neutral shot, but all of his camera movement is specifically motivated by something on screen. This is used to highlight things like points of tension, and even goes further to encourage performance blocking, production design, background elements, and so on. Something I like that doesn't necessarily have everything to do with camera movement is how he leaves in like little background elements that don't necessarily serve the story, but it helps to build up the world around the characters.
Call Dave Axelrod in New York, tell him he owes me a favor, all right? Now this is the shot I want with everybody and the fish in it, okay? Guys, can we please get organized?
We can better understand the goals of motivating camera movement through the concept of eye trace. Eye trace is how the audience's eyes are directed through the shots from movement of the on-screen elements, color, light, the camera itself, anything that isn't actually a cut. You can actually direct eye trace through cuts, but Spielberg is less known for this.
It's all right, man. FBI.
If you want to do a regular shot or reverse shot, your eyes will be darting between the left and right sides of the screen, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if more action is happening, you might want to move the eye trace only during shots, but keep it consistent between cuts. Good examples are Mad Max Fury Road with keeping the action right in the center and The Raid Redemption, but Spielberg didn't directly, so moving on. Both background and main characters, as well as a variety of on-screen elements, will constantly enter and exit the frame even in the middle of scenes. This reminds the audience of a larger world around the specific frame they're looking at and gives variety to the visuals. Replacing the center of attention not only several times per scene but also per shot keeps the viewer's attention better focused and makes the actual content slightly easier to digest by supporting it within the camera work.
Put down the gun. I'm taking a car, man. Put down the goddamn gun!
Where's my daughter?
I'm taking a car,
Please,
man.
just want my daughter. Please, let me just take my daughter. All I want is my daughter.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, man. Take it. Yeah.
Robbie.
This is why I think the cinematography and composition in Spielberg movies goes a little more unnoticed compared to, say, Denis Villeneuve movies, at least on the surface level. But maybe I'm wrong and I just watched all the classic Spielberg movies as a kid when I was too young to understand the intricacies of active cinematography. Moving on. He really likes oners, or at least his long takes. He'll combine over-the-shoulder shots with side profiles, change the composition multiple times per shot, and will also focus pull multiple times, if not leaving the entire frame in focus to give the appearance of a wider setting beyond the borders of the frame. Sometimes mirrors are used to show both the character and what they're looking at simultaneously. However, a lot of times, aside from this, he'll focus our attention entirely on one thing, then switching to another. There's always just one more thing that we notice in the shot that we weren't necessarily looking at or focusing on. Even if the eye trace keeps shifting, you will know precisely what element you're looking at until it is changed. Just as much as what you see is important, Spielberg is unafraid to show the importance of what you can't see. This can serve multiple purposes, such as building tension or letting your brain fill in the gaps of whatever's there. Jurassic Park is a great example of both. At the beginning, he waits to reveal the giant sauropod, showing the characters' reactions to it first, building up to the grand reveal. This also functions in reverse when the escaped T-Rex eats the Gallimimus. We witness the kill, but it's followed by another long take not of the T-Rex, but of Alan and the kid's reactions as he tries to pull them away from watching the T-Rex eat the Gallimimus.
Ever look at birds the same way again?
Yes. Go now.
Okay. Keep low and follow me.
Look how much blood.
Another great example of this is Schindler's List when we go through the long opening sequence without ever seeing his face. Something especially important to blocking is how the actors are presented in frame. Usually with those in center frame or larger in the frame and taking up more of space, being more prominent or more in control in the scene. Take the scene from Jaws where Brody and Hooper are both trying to convince the mayor to shut down the beach in front of the graffitied billboard. They both grow and shrink as each of them tries to come up with more points to get the mayor to change his mind. But for most of the scene, the mayor is planted firmly center frame and like fairly consistent in size. It's the old like the Citizen Kane trick where they like shrink him in the background. When did Citizen Kane release? Damn, these tricks have been around since the dawn of time. Wait, if Spielberg learned it from that, he'd have to be... Anyways, to wrap this up, here's some little notes about his personal style in case you want to incorporate anything of his into your own personal work. On the thematic level, he commonly likes to tell stories about people who are ordinary in extraordinary, unusual situations. The faces of people in these events are often displayed. Alright, what's up? Welcome back. We're on day 2 now, as you can see. There's like a bunch of technical difficulties, and my computer just doesn't have Bluetooth on it for some reason. If I remember correctly, I think my SD card filled up, and then my computer just stopped working, so that was a few days ago. Anyways, to wrap this up, here's some notes about Spielberg's personal style, just in case you want to incorporate anything else of his into your own work. On the thematic level, he commonly likes to tell stories about ordinary people in extraordinary situations. The faces of these people are often especially important. He likes to go for close-ups of their reactions. He also cuts between the characters and often a wide shot of what they're looking at. Not necessarily a POV, but like at least something that gives us their perspective. Axial cuts, which are basically jump cuts between different zoom lengths of the same shot, are rarely used. For reference, I can't really do this, but like if I do this in post, I don't know if it actually counts, but it would basically be from here to here. The Jaws beach scene that Spielberg does is kind of an exception, where he covers it up with multiple people walking in front of the camera. Usually the cinematography and editing don't do anything fancy, but focus on keeping the audience perfectly clear of what's happening on screen and engaged without orienting the shots in an overly stylistic manner. He also builds a static lens plot for each movie he makes. Now, a static lens plot means that the overall look of the film, the aspect ratio, color palette, lenses, and so on, remain consistent and almost purely serve the story being told. A narrative lens plot takes us a step further and actively changes with the story, while an elemental lens plot changes with its own set of rules depending on the characters, practical story elements, and settings on screen. Spielberg's static lens plot does change between movies, but this does fit within his overarching style of serving the story with his cinematography without using over-the-top, outwardly noticeable camera tricks. For example, in Schindler's List, he refrained from using any cranes to avoid elevating the camera, keeping everything on the floor for a more immersive, grounded look and feel. For reference, this dude loves using his cranes. There's cranes everywhere in his movies. I'd advise you to take into account that this is not necessarily all professional advice to make your films look more cinematic. This is advice on how to make your work look like Spielberg's movies. You don't necessarily have to follow every bit of this to the letter. Recently, I made a short with a completely elemental lens plot before I even researched for this video and knew what that means. Not all of this stuff is guaranteed to elevate your work if you don't practice and learn how to implement it correctly. The main thing, besides some of the blocking stuff that I can guarantee will help you, is to serve the story and tone of the film with the cinematography as much as you can. If it doesn't fit the emotion... What did I... Oh! Colors! If it doesn't fit the emotion, the world, the story beats, or what the characters are going through, just don't do it. If it does, go right ahead. Anyways, I hope you took away what you wanted from the video. So what do you think? Agree? Disagree? Comment down below. Start an argument. Get me more viewer engagement. This is a new channel still. Technically. Let's tell some great stories to the world. See y'all next time.
Stand by this, whatever this is.
I feel like Latin is best spoken in like a British accent, you know, like, but like a specific like deep British accent where it's like, hey, what's up, bro? So it's like, you know, it's like that Roman Empire feel where we get from all, like, if you ever seen like Gladiator and all this stuff. Like, you ever seen that video where this one dude's like, what's the worst British accent? And that one goes like, Birmingham. Like, no, it's you, like specifically you. I don't know where that accent's from, but it's you.